Today I want to talk about Expression Web, and that's all we're going to do about it is talk about it. I'm going to demo it. If you would like a copy of it, it's free through DreamSpark. You can download it from DreamSpark, or you can come get a DVD from me. I find it a very valuable web maintenance tool. It might be a very valuable web development tool. It's much better than it used to be. It has a few issues, but it has a couple of features that are very nice. And I'll demonstrate those today. I've created just a sample little website here. It's already done, so I'm going to show you a little bit about how I would use Expression Web to maintain that. And this is the tool that I use to maintain my website to some extent. Doesn't mean I don't use HTML. Doesn't mean it's a perfect tool, but it's much better than it used to be. Expression Web many years ago replaced something called Front Page. Front Page created horrible HTML. It was almost indecipherable. The web pages came up fine, but the HTML that was created behind it was very difficult to maintain without using Front Page. Expression Web, on the other hand, creates relatively clean HTML that is easy for someone to edit even in HTML mode. Start Expression Web, we just find its icon. I've already launched it. And once you're in there, then you go find your website. So here's Expression Web, and it has all kinds of extra things around here that you can use. I'll talk about those in a second, but let me first bring in a website. Instead of opening a file, you open a site. My site's on my desktop, so I'll go find it here real quick. Oh, it's not going to be, oh, you got to be kidding me. It's a Citrix issue. Excuse me while I go find the real desktop. If I can remember how. I need the C drive, please. You're not going to let me go to the C drive? Sorry, I should have tried it before this. There we go. If you cannot find your desktop and there's stuff stored on it, like where I just stored my new web page or website, if you go under Users and find your account desktop there, you'll find it. The two desktops are also a little out of sync, just like the USB removable drive. Everything else is out of sync, so enough Citrix nonsense. Open up that site. Expression Web has a nice feature where it can open the last site that you worked on. So if you're like me and I mostly maintain one site, every time I open Expression Web, it's looking at my website, ready for me to do what minor modifications I need to do. Expression Web also has the ability to FTP, in other words, file transfer protocol, my save changes to my website. I don't normally use it to do that. I use it to make my changes, but I have not configured it to talk to my fat cow page and say he made these changes and I'll make them on his website. Expression Web, if I remember right, and I use it for limited things, but if I remember right, it likes to do that automatically. I make a change and boom, it sends it. Make a change and boom, it sends it. I want control over that. I might want to look at it first. I might want to think about it. I might want it most of the time. Yeah, that's what I want, but I don't like the fact that it's automatic. This site that I have has an index page and page 2, 3. Okay. That's not good, right? 2 and 3 ought to be in a separate folder. I can do the file management here, so I can right-click and make a new folder and call it Pages. And there's my pages, and now I can move stuff around, but I'm not going to do it just yet because there's a component. This is the valuable component of Expression Web. If I want to rearrange my website, if I do that, what happens to these pages and the links on them? They're all out of date, and I've got to go to every one of those pages and update it. This is the power of Expression Web. If I turn on the right feature, and I'll show you how here in just a second, I can move these pages, and all of the links will update automatically. And on a site the size of mine, it takes it a while, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't screw it up. And so that's a very valuable feature.
That's nice.
You know, if we were all perfect, we'd design our sites just right, and they'd have all the right subfolders and subfolders. But after you get at it a while, you might decide to rearrange some things. That's where Expression Web comes in. You don't have to go find those things. And if you've got hundreds of pages in your site, that would be completely annoying. As I mentioned before I started the recording, this is Expression Web 4, and at least on DreamSpark, that's the current version. it behaves, it still does some weird things here that I would have thought by now had been cleaned up. All right, back to those notes. Expression Web on the left-hand side, on the left-hand side of the screen over here has a folder list, and I could have right-clicked here and put my new folder in there. I chose to do it here. This is just a mirror of that called Site View. They're mirrors. Normally, after a while, this is going to be hidden, but I can still see my entire folder view over here. So that's nice. Martha's already commented about how she likes Text Wrangler because she can see the entire structure of the website instead of 1 or 2 pages at a time like TextPad or Notepad++ shows you. Expression Web shows you all that stuff. And we have a toolbox and we have some tags. Let me open up a page. To open a page, you simply double click it. Expression Web lets you look at that page in one of 3 different ways. In Design View, sounds like Visual Studio, right? In Code View, there's the HTML that's behind the scenes. And, this is my favorite, Split View. In Split View, I get to see both, and I can control the split and how wide it is. And on a big monitor, this is really nice because I get a preview, and this is a live preview. So if I come up here and I change this H1, let's see, where is that one? If you want to, this is another thing, click on it. It's kind of a dark blue. If I want to make its color dark green, I think that's a color. Nope. Notice squiggles, because it's not a color. Let's find out for sure. Control S to save it. Oh yes, it is. Lied to me. Hey, this is pardon me?
It's probably telling you it's misspelled because it's together.
No, the dark colors are like that. It's complaining because it's not one of the standard 16 or 18 colors.
Oh.
But it is one of the recognized in HTML5. There's 165 some odd named colors. And this is a place where Expression Web is not quite caught up yet. There's a few other things it hasn't caught up on. But it does have syntax highlighting, so if I misspell style, it'll tell me about it. And so that'll help a little bit. But again, there are some issues. My dark green did kick in. The only thing I had to do was save. I can come down here and change the word hope and get it selected. There we go. I can use all kinds of toolbar buttons. It's already bold. I can italicize it. Notice when I do that, it inserts an emphasis tag. All that happens behind the scenes automatically. Very nice. For editing, I think. But you, as I've been saying all along, before you all go, geez, why didn't you show me this way back? We could be done with HTML by now. You need to know the HTML for next semester when we start writing code to generate HTML. You can't write PHP code. Actually, the new Expression Web actually allows you to write PHP code in here. But I haven't been able to get it to work. You need the HTML because you're going to write PHP that creates HTML, and if you don't understand it, that's going to cause trouble. So that's why we went through that process. But we've got all these formatting buttons, bullets, and numbered lists, and borders, and all kinds of stuff that you can do. And there's even more commands, no doubt, that we can get at. Highlighting, and images and links, and if I want to create a link in here, I can just highlight it. I like to press Control K because it's my favorite shortcut key. And I can go find a website. I can browse for it online. I can link to one of the pages in my site. I can link to a bookmark using a place in this document if there's bookmarks. There aren't any right now. So I don't have to type my links manually. I don't have to keep track of the ... But if I just click on these things, you can also right-click and change the hyperlink someplace. Not going to let me do it. There was a button for hyperlink, Control K, and usually you can right-click it. But if I pick one of these pages and say I want that to link to page 2, it puts in the appropriate dots, puts in the names, and whoops, why did it do that? That's not good. This, I believe, is a Citrix issue. You do this on your computer, it'll put in a relative address there. Here, it used a file reference, and I think it's because of Citrix. It should recognize that file is inside this site and make it a relative reference. So I'm just going to undo it. So it works much better than it does here in Citrix. So that's another reason I'm glad we're not using this. We have a toolbox over here. If you wish, you can use these to add things. For instance, I can put a horizontal line like right there. But notice the tag that it put in. An HR with a slash at the end. It's the old XHTML1 type styles. I can take it out manually and then everything's cool. And if I save it, it gives me a horizontal rule somewhere around wherever I was there, right above my Microsoft Office list. There's a horizontal rule. I can still put styles in. There's a style picker over here, and I can pick if I pick the H1 or the HR tag, where are you there? Here's all the things I can do style-wise to an HR tag. So if you can't remember all the style names, you're new to HTML. Right? There's all the different styles that you can use. So this could be a nice supplement. You're trying to write HTML and you can't remember, is it bottom margin or margin bottom? Of course, you can go look it up in Google, or you could have Expression Web open on the side someplace and scroll through the list and find it. All of them are there. However, these are set up by layout. They are set up for tables, and they are set up for all kinds of other things. Most of these things I find annoying. They get in my way. I close them. Same thing with a toolbox. I want a horizontal line. It's an HR tag. I know it at this stage. I'm not going to drag it in here. This tool is designed for people who don't have HTML experience to generate HTML. Because if I hide this code view and just go to design view, I can drag and drop all kinds of stuff onto the form and create a pretty decent website without ever knowing what's going on behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, as we saw, there are some issues. We also have to, I believe it's site. You can do the site settings, or is it, forget, there's different settings here. There's site settings, there's also application settings, and there's page settings. I forget which ones are which. So I'll go back to my notes and kind of follow along here. Another nice thing about this site view is down at the bottom we have different views. One for folders, that's where I normally add. There's a publishing page, and this is where I can add a link to my Fat Cow site and start using this to send pages up there. Don't use it. Can generate some reports. My favorite one are the broken links report. If you click that, it'll go through your entire site, make sure each one of the links is still live. Very handy if you have a large site like mine. Every fall, I usually have students tell me there's stuff on your cool stuff page that doesn't work anymore. I can run this, and it'll give me a list of all of them, and I go clean them all out. So some of these can come in very handy. This is one that occasionally comes in handy. It shows you how all the pages are linked. However, it's not showing me anything. The reason it's not showing me anything is because for this site, I have not turned on a very important part, and that's the maintain metadata files. I mentioned before that Expression Web has the ability, if I move pages, to automatically update all the links. Well, that's because behind the scenes, Expression Web keeps a bunch of metadata. Metadata is just like the meta tags that we put in. It's not real stuff, it's just information about who's linked to what, where, and what images. It keeps a lot of extra stuff behind the scenes that allows us to do some of these cool things like move pages and have all the links updated. That allows us to see what pages are linked to who, in what order. I'm currently on the index page. Who do I link to? The CSS file and these two pages. Who links to me? Those two pages come back to me as well. Again, on my site, I don't even bother looking at this because it's just mind-boggling. All the different links that are coming in, it just blows your mind. It's not bad in this case, but it's another tool that I don't use very often because after your site gets huge, it gets a little overwhelming. So I don't use the toolbox. I don't use, there are snippets here for inserting certain things. I haven't used those. And we can apply certain styles. If I have style sheets, probably have to go back to the page view to do that. This page has styles brought in. One-time style, inline styles, heading styles. I can apply them to other parts. Once you get to know HTML, this just seems like a roundabout way of going about it. I don't do it very often, but this is the inside. This stuff, these are the styles that are defined inside the assignment tracker CSS. Here's an inline style. I can click on it, maybe go look at the code for it if I wanted to. It's probably that one right there. It does some background shading, even gives you a look at what it looks like. So it has a few advantages. Back to my notes. Talked about toolboxes and styles. I closed most of that stuff because what I want is as much of this as possible so I can see as much of my page and as much as my HTML. That's what I want. But all those other tabs can be restored and brought back if you find some value in them. Talked about the tab views, and this is the critical part. And this is set on a site-by-site basis, though I think Expression Web on your computer, if you were using it, would remember that the last time she built a site, she turned this on, and it maintains, and it'll remember that. But it's something that you want to check because that one setting is the power of Expression Web, if you ask me. Expression Web by default, this version 4.0 comes out of the box ready for XML 1.1, which is not what we're using anymore. So how do I tell it that I want to use HTML5? We go to Tools, and I believe it's Page Editor, yep. And here I can set the authoring. I want to use HTML. I want to use the HTML extension instead of HTM extension. And notice here it's saying, here's the type of document that I'm going to create. I'm going to change that to HTML5. Secondary schema Internet Explorer 8, I don't think so. Notice there's no 9. It only knows the Internet Explorers that you have installed. In my office, it sees 9 and it sees 10. I normally make these two the same. This is the one that bothers me. There's no CSS3. There's a draft here, but not CSS3, and this draft is now 2-3 years old, and they're not updating it. And now my page is ready for HTML5, but what surprised me here is after I changed that in my office, I dragged another HR in here, checked to see if it still put the slash on the end. It did, even though I said this is an HTML5 page. It's funny because if I put the slash in these tags, it'll yell at me because this isn't it. It should. It's not going to do it. Maybe not in the head tag. Let's go down to that HR tag. Where'd it go? There. Maybe it didn't hear me. This says HTML5, so why it's not doing the HTML5 syntax checking now all of a sudden it stopped, I don't know. Maybe because of a new page. So when I said in the beginning, there's still some flaws here. You still got to be smarter than the tools you're using. Would this work for my daughter who's a high school to junior high teacher who wants to develop a couple simple web pages? Probably. Does she need all the HTML prowess that you have? Probably not. But you got to be a little smarter, I think, than your tools. All right. Back to my notes. What else we got in here? What you see is what you get. We've seen that. Okay, split view shows both. And a nice thing is if you've got a lot, imagine a big page, lots of HTML, and I want to change, come on, keep up with me, this. How do I find the HTML for that? Click on it here. If you select it, it'll select it up there. It makes it easy to find it, so you don't have to scrolling. Another nice little side benefit, again, not terribly important. Have the ability to preview in browsers, whatever browsers are installed. So I've got Explorer 9 here and Firefox 22 here and Chrome installed. I can preview them in any one of these. Maybe Chrome is not installed. Oops. Let's try Explorer. Okay. So I can preview it just like Notepad++ where you click on the browser that you want and it loads it. What's really cool, but a little time consuming, is the split view. Okay. They call it Super Preview. You can actually preview your page in 4 different browsers, 5 different browsers, 5 different versions of the same browser all at the same time. Okay. So I can say, show it to me in Internet Explorer 8 and show it to me in Internet Explorer 9. And I haven't used this much, but there are ways to add even more pages to this and different browsers. And so in one preview, you can preview what your site looks like and all the different pages. Even if you type it manually. I mean, I use Expression Web and I use Notepad++, and now I'm using Text Strangler whenever I'm on my Mac. They're all compatible with each other. This is still just generating text, HTML behind the scenes. So they're all compatible with each other, but these tools can be very nice. And the only thing I think this is going to make me ultimately do is drag that actual page in there so I can look at it, see if this works. Nope. No? How annoying is that?
Great programmers.
Pardon me?
Great programmers.
Yeah. Well, again, the stuff's a bit dated, but the question is, how do I get pages in here?
Maybe the location.
Enter a website address. Enter it where?
Maybe at the location.
Don't have a location.
Where? There.
Right.
Thank you. Can I browse? Submit. There's my browse button. But once again, I have to go find the lovely. Oh, it found it. Okay. I just had to tell it to bring it in there. And so there I can compare the two and see which one's which. And down here it tells me which browsers are who. And I can compare them. So that can come in very handy. There is a way to bring Firefox in here. It's amazing that the Explorer or that Expression Web will do it, but it'll do it. I just haven't played with it in a long time. But it's a great way to see that my pages look the same because they scroll in sync. But notice they're not quite the same, are they? Look here versus there. Here, red lines, you can see the differences. This one's Explorer 8 and this one is 9, so I'm going, so what? Who cares? So that's a cool feature, I think, if you have need for it. If you're, put yourself back in the real world. Here, Evoker's being a little more flexible. As long as it works in Firefox, Chrome, I'm okay. And ultimately, when we do our systems project next semester, we'll have to make sure it's okay in Explorer. Explorer 8, 9, 10, 11, how far back we going? We'll have to figure that out. That's part of the project requirements when we come up with them. How far back browser-wise? If we're doing a web application, how far back do we have to go? We asked Sheila, how far back do you want to go? And she said 9's fine. She uses 9. So any of my users that are using 8, what does it look like in 8? When we looked at it, it was significantly different. Students spent a fair amount of time, but they did get it to work in 8, even though the user said it might not be necessary. But how many people are out there that are still using 8? Fine. So if your web page looks funky, what are they going to do? Bail. I wonder, the government site problem that we're having right now, how many of that's because there's people using IE6? You make $16,000 a year. What's the chances you've updated your browser? Using IE6 to go against a government website to sign up for healthcare. I wonder how many browser issues this is. It's not the healthcare site, though they're admitting to some of that. But I wonder how much the browser issues. Pardon me?
Even just the security problems that are associated with the older browsers.
Yeah, there's security issues, and now I just got today my Chrome updated to version 30. It's a challenge. We can beat up on those HTML programmers that did all that stuff and didn't have the site perfect, but boy, you'll find how fun that is next semester. All right. Now the power of Expression Web, as I mentioned before. Because we turned on the meta files, I can now use my site view or even over here to move stuff around. So I can grab these 2 pages and drag them to the pages folder, and it updated, you saw the little flashy thing, it updated the links automatically. If I go to the hyperlinks, it still sees them. And notice where it says they are now. They're in the pages folder. Just as effective as if I rename one of the pages. You want to update them? Well, yeah. And now it updates them all. Okay, if I go back to index,
Why does page 3 have a funky line to it? On the other
This
side?
one here?
Side.
Back to screen.
Back to screen.
which back is, oh, when that was page 2 I was looking at, I think, or overview.
Page 3.
That one looks like it's broken for some reason, maybe. So this my overview page goes to page 3, but it doesn't have the page folder in front of it. So it broke it somehow. 3 knows how to get to 2, but this one doesn't seem to know how to get to 3. So that one's broken. So I'd have to go inside here and try to find that. It's got a space in the front of it for some reason. The %20 we recognize as a space, right? So that's what was causing the problem. And now it's back a page and then pages.
Shouldn't you just deal with putting page 3 HTML?
In here? No. Once it's there, if you type it manually, it figures you know what you're doing. It's not going to go find it for you. Oh, actually, you're right. This is 2 to 3. You're right. Thank you. Okay, and then if we save that and go back to our site view, now it's fixed. So there's another advantage of site view, as Angie caught there. If there's a broken link, you'll see it if you're paying attention. But again, imagine 20, 30 pages here, it might not catch your eye. That's where the reports come in handy. That to me is the big component of this. When I was first building my website, I was rearranging stuff left and right. The reason it didn't update that page is because for some reason it had a space in it. And so it wasn't called page 3 HTML, it's called space page 3 HTML. And it didn't match the criteria for search and replace. It went dick, so it couldn't update that one. I'm glad Angie caught it because I didn't know I'd forgotten about that one. If you want to create a new website, it's pretty easy to do. Just go to Site and create a new one. Seems to me I'd go to File, New, but it doesn't work that way. New site, I'll take a one-page site and tell it where I want it to put it. And there's no site there with that name, so I can create a new folder. Funky name, but it should go fine. And it creates a default page. There's probably something in the settings where I can say, no, don't call it default, call it index. Remember from many, many moons ago that they're interchangeable. So I can open that page. Notice it's set up for HTML5. I'm going to bring back my tools panel and see what happens if I bring a horizontal line in here. It's still adding that extra backslash and it's still saying it's acceptable. But remember in HTML5, it is acceptable. Think about it, it's acceptable. The error that I saw before is when I took it out in XHTML mode. When I was still in XHTML, you take that out, you get an error. In HTML5, you can put it in, you can leave it out, it doesn't matter. I ask you to be consistent, and why type it if you don't need to? So the toolbox also doesn't have all the tools. If we look here, here's all the inputs, but where's my numeric input? Where's some of my other types of inputs? Here's the text area. So these are okay for making forms if you want to drag them around. Add a form. And here's the form, and okay, then instead of adding them to the HTML, I can actually add them right to the form. So I could take a text box and put it in there. You're not going to let me do that. Can I put it in there? Yeah, that's weird. But it doesn't let me change the types, doesn't have the other types in here, doesn't have footers, doesn't have any, even though it's HTML5, doesn't have footers, doesn't have sections, doesn't have the header tags. A lot of the newer HTML5 tags are not here. Yes, sir?
But it might not be dragging. Is there any It's under the body there. Is it just the rule and then the page ends?
I've got the form selected here, so that looks like there's the form. Okay, I didn't have it selected far enough, so let's see if I can put a button in there now. There we go. So yeah, it'll do it. Kind of ugly. Still nice to know how to bring in your own CSS to line those up just the way we wanted them to. But you can, if you want to, from now on, I would suggest you not do it for the forms assignment. But after that, most of them from now on, I give you the form anyways. Just typing in the JavaScript. Can I add JavaScript to this? Yes. Can I debug in here? No. You can add JavaScript in here. You can preview it, run it, see what kind of stuff happens, but there's no big JavaScript debugger in here. That's one of the things we're going to talk about on Thursday is, okay, we want to do JavaScript, but how do I debug it? Because like any programming language, you're going to make mistakes. You make logic errors. You're not going to know the language. You're going to make mistakes. How do you find your way through? Answer that question, by the way, is Firefox. If you're not a Firefox user, you will be. Install Firefox on your laptop wherever you're functioning because we're going to use a tool of Firefox called Firebug that is still the best JavaScript debugger out there. So that's what we're going to use. So if you want to prep yourself for the rest of this semester and next for that matter, install Firefox so that you can use Firebug. You don't have to use it for your favorite browser, but you should be using it to develop and test JavaScript. What else do we need to know here? You can double click it to add new pages. There's a button to add new pages, and notice the HTML, a lot of it was already there. If I add a new page, HTML is already there, just have to give it a title, just have to give it keywords. Any one of these I can right click, go to the page properties, and here's the meta tags. You get the idea. And it inserts all that stuff for you, so you don't have to do it yourself. But notice the indentation. Good news is it's not hard to tweak. And notice the order that it put them in. That's not where I would put the title. I would want the title separate from my meta tags, but that's me. But the good news is in split mode here, I can do whatever I want to it. And it leaves it alone. That was one of the other problems with one of the earlier versions of Expression Web is I'd move it around and go, no, my way's better, to put it back. Firefox, crazy stuff. I can type text down here, then I can highlight it, and if I change the color of it, let's watch what it does. That's text color. Okay, so we'll pick a red and apply it, and you notice what it did. This is one part that makes me crazy. It created a brand new style called Auto Style 1. Isn't that a lovely name? Well, think about it. What would it call it? Style 1, Style 2, Style... Okay, it made auto style, so you know it's yours. Okay. But it automatically created that style, automatically made it an embedded style. Didn't indent it very nice. There's my style tag, and there's my end style, and it didn't indent this, but let's give it a little bit of credit. It created it and applied it to that span. Okay. If I later on apply it to something else, I think it'll use the same one. Let's find out. Yep. So it was smart enough to say, hey, I already have a style that's got just red in it. It'll go create it. If I change that color to blue, it creates an auto style 2. And after you've done a very large page, imagine your help page that you built with all the different styles I made you put in it. How many auto styles do you think you would have? A lot. And the name isn't all that great. Can I change it? Absolutely. You just go up here and change it to whatever you want. Okay, but then you have to remember to go through and change it in all the places. And if you do it right away, now comes the next test. Okay. If I start a new line down here, and I got some non-breaking spaces on those, that's okay. And now this is still red. Where did that style end? Maybe it didn't. Class equals red on that paragraph. Class equal, oh, there's a span right here. Okay. Looks like it started it over again. Interesting. So I'm going to take this out and just put in some text. I know it's a little small up there, but we'll do the best we can. Save it. Oops. Oh, I haven't saved this one yet. Right, now it's black again. Highlight a little bit of text and make it red. Be interesting to see if it calls it red. I think it will. Doesn't want me to. Oh, because it's the code, dummy. Class equals red. It recognizes it. So I think what they expect you to do is it creates a style for you, and then your job is to go give it a name and change it in 2 places. And from then on, when you reuse that style, it'll use the same name if you use the same layout. You can also use, remember there was a panel for apply styles that was over here, and there's my red style. And I can highlight text and say apply that. So I can see this with a little bit of practice being very handy. As an instructor, however, I have to teach you HTML, so I have to keep my HTML skills sharp. Doing it this way, I might get a little rusty. A lot of purists, that also means old guys like me, prefer raw HTML. But Expression Web does a halfway decent job of managing all that stuff for you. Just saw how to add text to a page. We can format it using all kinds of things. You want to insert special symbols, we can do that. We can change the alignment, etc. It does do spell checking. But now Notepad++ and Text Wrangler are spell checking as well. Can add a navigation bar, nothing real big there. Testing a page, we know about that. Adding more pages, more formatting. But remember, there's a lot of stuff that's missing. There is a cool button. I haven't tried it in a while. Where is it? Read the notes, dummy. It might help. And the custom button for colors. Okay, so if I want to pick a color for some text, I can click a custom color by clicking this little eyedropper thing. And then if I want to steal a color, like I like that shade of blue up there, or that shade of gray, or that shade of yellow, I can touch anything. On my other screen, I don't know if it's going to work. Yeah, I can touch. No, it will not let me suck from the Mac world. We'll believe that. What's the matter? But here's a shade of green. I can pick some of these things. Doesn't like those toolbars either because they're not real. But that can be a nice little, I need this exact color. Well, I got a company logo from someplace. Most drawing programs have the same feature, but at least here it's built in. And over there on the left-hand side, you can see they're barely big enough. The RGB values or the hex value down to the B0A8FF is the hex value for that color that's currently selected. That's a handy little tool. Expression Web also allows you to deal with tables. I'm not going to spend hardly any time on this because it's very, very similar to Word. In Microsoft Word, you probably learned how to insert a table. You click where you want the table to go, and then you find the table tool. That's not it. That's not it. There it is. Okay, and I want a table that's that big.
Oh, man.
Dang, that would have been handy, right? Okay, and then I could say select the whole table, okay, and turn the borders on all the way around. And I could then go, I don't know if I can do the collapse here automatically by right-clicking the table properties, alignment, cell padding, collapse the table borders. Want to merge some cells, highlight them, right-click, I thought there was modify, merge cells, and it does all the taking out, putting in.
Where was that when you did that table?
Yeah, but guess what? You build more than anything else in PHP. Tables. In PHP, you build more than anything else, you build tables of data. Because you go into a database and you pull out, we just did it in the relational database class, you pull out a bunch of data out of the database and you get rows upon rows upon rows with 3 or 4 columns of data. How are you going to display those? In a table. If you don't know how tables are built, you don't have a good handle on how tables are built, that's a challenge. So yes, this comes in handy. So once again, this is good. How does this look over here to you? Looks pretty darn good, except for, this is the part I like. Every single cell has that style applied to it. Was that really necessary? Probably not. And removing it's going to be a challenge. Might have to do there, and there is a search and replace in here like there is anywhere else, so I could go look for class equals auto style 2 and remove them all. And apply that auto style to the entire table. I don't even know what auto style 2 is talking about. It's a solid border with 1 pixel around the outside. So that's my TD style, right? That's what we did. We called it TD. But that's the one thing that Expression Web won't do. It will not create a TD style. It only creates classes. Named styles. It will not create an ID style. It doesn't know how. Huh?
Doesn't need to.
It may not need to, but you might want to. You might want every one of your IDs and every single page of your document of your website to have the same style. Right? Does it need to? No. Doesn't need to here either, but look at this mess. If I had done that to a TD, my tables would be much cleaner. I wouldn't have all those styles applied to every cell. So there's limits. But again, it's not designed so much for you and me as it is for people who don't understand HTML. Behind the scenes, though, it does a pretty decent job of creating HTML. I'm sure I can merge columns as well. I haven't tried it in a while. Then what's real interesting is I can split this again. And I'm not sure exactly how I would do this using HTML into 3 rows. Used to be 4, now it's 3. It didn't do exactly what I expected. Microsoft Word would do a better job with that, because it would make these evenly divisible by 3. But how? Pfft, if that's what your table looks like, good luck.
Can't you make it in Word and export it as HTML and then see what it does?
You can try.
You don't want to try?
Right now, no.
You do it, let us know.
Yeah. Let's know how that turns out. Can I drag these? Looks like it. Right, but I'm really changing the height of the entire row. Can narrow them. But again, notice what it's doing. Why is it making that? Because it's 1. But it probably did it on every, yep, it did it on every one. And you and I know I only need to do it on the first one. Because once I set that one to 49 pixels, the rest of them automatically adapt. There's limitations. But Martha was drooling over, let me create a table and merge some cells. Yeah, very nice.
Well, easier.
Definitely easier, and it did a good job. And if you stop there and then start manipulating up here, you still saved yourself a lot of time, right? Nothing else, just creating the rows with 5 columns in it, you saved a lot of time. For me, it's often easier to go in here and tweak things than it is to go into the HTML, because I can't often find it in the HTML. If my HTML is monstrous, and it sometimes is, it's easier to go in this preview mode here, find the text and change it there, knowing the HTML is going to change. But I've discovered that there are people who go look at my website, the source code behind it, to see if it's actually valid, which is scary. Because my site started building 10 years ago, and once again, if it ain't broke and it ain't valid, I don't care, it looks right, let's get on with life. Right? But they're looking at it, so when I make changes, even down here in preview mode, I look at the HTML and see what it looks like. And now that I'm using Expression, or now that I'm using Macs, I don't have a GUI Mac web development tool. Probably never will, not in the Mac. I don't use this one often enough. I probably use Expression Web once a month. If I want to add a row to a table. I always think it'll be easier in Expression Web, and then I try it in Expression Web because I can right click down here and say add rows, insert rows above, below, etc. But how hard is it to highlight a TR tag, copy it, and paste it? And in most of my, I remember in my tables, I have the little yellow diamonds next to everything, that are just bullets. If I insert a row, I have to insert the yellow diamonds manually, and if I just copy the row, the diamonds are already there, and I just change the text. But I can do HTML development in here as well, and get a little bit of help when I need it. Can't remember what that vertical alignment style is called. I can dig it out of here. So there's your introduction to that tool. It is a tool. You may use it. I can't tell anymore. I might be able to. If I see an auto style one, I might have a hint where you've been. All right.
Very smart enough to change
I think yeah. Well, it's like I tell my programming students, if you copy other people's code, I hope you're smart enough to change their name to yours, and they're not. But you may use it. If you can't figure out how to do something yourself, maybe you can figure out how to use it by right-clicking in Expression Web and see the HTML that's inserted. Might be a solution. Okay. If you forget the bullets or indentation or centering. I did find somewhere in here, though, there was an option. I think it was one of these over here. I forget what was over here. Where it was one of the styles. It said align, and it inserted a deprecated tag. It didn't change the style to text align center. It inserted an align attribute, which is deprecated, and let it go. And you all know what happens when you do that. First of all, it doesn't validate. Right? Second, if you don't validate it, I will definitely validate it.
Validator choke.
Yep. So there's the tool. It has its uses. Right? It is free for you, as long as you're here at school. And as far as I know, there's no Expression Web 5. There needs to be, because this one was built, I think, around either Explorer 7 or 8, and we're 3 editions beyond that. I think it could be even better in the future, but it's not quite there yet. And where's my ribbons, right? How would I function with a Microsoft product without ribbons? You know how old this is. There's no ribbons here. It's all toolbars. It's got to be old. I don't know if they're building a new one. I have not heard. It may not be what they want to get into. There are other features here. Again, you can do PHP. You can do ASP. Somebody was asking me, are we ever going to learn some ASP? No, but you can put in some ASP tags here and see what they look like. Experiment with it.